Right, this real side experience started with me in what looked like a hotel room. There was somebody else present, but I didn't see them, and I'm not sure whether it was a man or a woman. I was about to go out and seemed to be undecided whether to put any shoes on, still being in stockinged feet. Sanity appeared to prevail. I can't remember ever going out in the street in the physical in my socks, and I pulled my shoes on and made my exit. For some reason out in the street I felt I was in Japan, somewhere I have never visited in this physical life, although it looked much the same as any town setting in England. I seemed uncertain where to go, but then decided to follow my nose and started off down the street. I wandered around some town square or confluence of roads and was aware of a woman approaching me. She didn't look especially Japanese, but rather tall and slim. She asked me to follow her. You can probably guess where this is going. Yet in the dream no such thoughts occurred to me, rather curiosity. I went down a narrow side street and stood for a minute in the middle of the road, opposite a door, a red door. Between us and the pavement, sidewalk, was a wide puddle stretching out almost to the centre of the road. I didn't see what the woman did, but I started to walk through the puddle, only to find it was several inches deep, and quickly reversed out and went round it to the left. As I gained the pavement, the door opened and a Chinese-looking, I supposed in fact Japanese man stepped out. He slipped on the wet pavement, and I grabbed his arm, stopping him from falling in the pond in the road. He went on his way, and with the woman now visible again, I entered the door with her. Once inside, I found us in a largish corridor. Over to the left were 3 closed doors. Each had a single number on it, but oddly they were in no logical sequence. Unfortunately, I couldn't remember what the 3 numbers were when I woke, but assumed it was of no consequence. By now, it had dawned on even me what kind of establishment it was, confirmed when a pretty Western-looking girl appeared and took me into one of the rooms, seemingly to the annoyance of the first woman, who now walked off. I now found myself lying on my back on a bed, with the girl laying face down on top of me, although we were both fully clad. I don't know if I still had my shoes on. Then it happened. I woke up. The immediate thought that came to mind about this dream was it seemed to be set in a rather crazy world, where nothing was as you would expect it to be. Firstly, it seemed quite a normal decision to make whether to go out in your socks and no shoes. Then I entered a supposedly Japanese street scene that looked very typically English. Of the 3 people I actually saw, 2 looked Western, the women, only the man at the door seemed Oriental, but my immediate thought was he was actually Chinese rather than Japanese. We had an innocent enough looking puddle that turned out to be something straight out of Laurel and Hardy. You felt if you took another step you would disappear from sight. Then there was the jumbled door numbers, finally the unlikely scene on the bed. So what was the point of it all? Maybe to be more aware and not to take everything at its face value, and probably get some new glasses as well, I think. That's my first one. Duane, what's the comment at all?
Well, that's a fun one. So again, you're in a hotel and you didn't have your shoes on, so you're exposing something there, but it's like you're on a trip. Okay, so you're on your adventure, and so you walk out into the street and things appear to be a particular, but you have these impressions. So that means that there are things behind the scenes, isn't there, that's not seen because you have the impression. Otherwise, you wouldn't. And so you go along, etc. You've got, it seems like you've got a little escort there. So this is part of the adventure, but we go through these things just to, many times in a way to unscramble all our conformity routines, as a matter of fact. And so as you look at this, and what I do as I have experiences like this and others, I have so many all the time. And so what I do is I utilize these things as a comparison to what's real, is how I see is, and then they just kind of dissipate. Now, if there's something there, okay, the real awareness will recognize it. If the personal self needs it, it'll take that in too. But the interesting thing is that like Val and I go through a lot of things together, and we watch movies and we talk, etc. Now, I'm at this point mainly where I don't really have to consider anything, and it just appears. I just see it. So, but the personal self and the real awareness goes through all these scenarios, different scenarios on the real side, because it all adds up. If you have the intent and you're really looking to continually figure out, to recognize what this is, these things all add up to that. So yes, there's an interpretation there, all right, and the interpretation is something. So, but that part there that isn't the interpretation is the most important part. So you grab from it what you can, all right, instead of just, I've done this for the longest time, and I really get a little bit tired of interpreting people's dreams, because I like to get to the main point here. Why are you doing this? Why are you having these? And are you interested to learn more? So you will constantly be prompted to go through these things, Peter, as long as you have the intent there. And even when you don't, because you've already been hooked up with the real guides, but you decide your intent, how intensive that is, to really, just like an Olympic, a person that wants to go out for the Olympics, and they want to be the best gymnast, the best runner, whatever it is. You decide your intent, or is it just that you want to know the meaning of these things, etc., etc.? See, you are the decider now. So all these little funny things really do add up to that. That's the most important part, more so than just the interpretation of these things. So you decide how you're going to compare that to resolve that, to get through that, etc. It's kind of like dusting off your car. If you don't care if it's dusty, fine. But if you decide to clean it and keep it clean so that you can see how it is and you can show others how it is as an example, again, we each decide this. So, but again, you're on your journey. You're someplace else that appears to be someplace else, but that is to help offset that personal side of yourself that is just like this experience that's all made up. Everything in it, the relationships, the whole movie that you've lived through your whole life, and you're the decider. Will you decide to see through all of it, or will you hang on to part of it, etc.? Again, you are the decider now.
Yeah, this visit to the real side lasted only seconds and consisted of a static scene in which nothing actually happened. It was, however, so vivid and felt so physical, I felt very much that it was a past life snapshot. The setting was evidently in ancient Egypt, and I appeared to be viewing it from a certain height, as if from the top of a building. Unlike present-day images of Egypt, no sand was evident, but instead a city of beautiful gardens and lush plant life. Dominating the centre of the scene were two identical and enormous slate-grey obelisks. They looked brand new, and were covered in symbols and, I guess, hieroglyphics. Off to the left, a large river wound its way through the city against a verdant backdrop of trees and hills. That's it, really. The thoughts about it. In a past life session which I once had that included 5 past lives, one was indeed in ancient Egypt, though no description was given of the location, and I suppose we've all been everywhere over our thousands or even millions of past lives, so I don't think that means much. While it was just so vivid and looked as though the whole city was newly constructed, which was very interesting. It's hard to see anything else in this glimpse of the past. So once again, I'm afraid I haven't come up with any answers, and throw myself on your hands, Duane.
Well, again, each one of us has our adventure with this, and it all comes from ourselves. Everything comes from ourselves. So, it's like if you're going to go to college, you choose the courses. There's many courses, and there's many ways to get through college, and everybody chooses different courses, and it doesn't matter. You can get through it. So you're on your course, and again, it's very important to recognize. Okay, so you have past lives. We all have past lives, but that's just things we've experienced, and that's all in the now. Now, your real awareness through these experiences that you're getting, you're given this from all life itself, the real guides, whatever, doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. Whatever's prompted to give it to you, so that as long as you have the intent to continue, it will bring these things up. Now, yeah, the personal self is not going to always understand a lot of this. So again, this is where you learn to see more than your mind, and this you cannot you cannot do this for somebody. Everybody has to do this on their own. Everybody has to figure it out for themselves, and it's very, very important. And it's not something you've known. All right, it's something that you don't know, and there will always be more to it. So again, but you have a reference here. All right, you have this reference that you're going by, and you decide how that reference is going to work for you. So every day that we're doing these, and as time goes on, etc., it's not going to stay the same. I'm not going to present it the same, because I don't see it the same. I see the steps that I go through to present this. And it's not, just like when Paul was here in the beginning, he did readings for people. And then after a couple of years or whatever, he stopped doing that because he didn't want to keep telling people this or that or whatever. He didn't want to. That was the first stage of the babying along. Then came the rest of it. And this is where people step up. They earn their initiations. Whatever. That was for that time. All those things and what Paul describes in the books was for that time. And people can cherish all that stuff, whatever. You can have it. It's just rearranged words. It means nothing. The real guys don't care because it's always the new nonus now and to be recognized. So this is the big step. And these are references for you. Now, they're going to give you many references. And that personal self, yeah, it's going to, juggle these things around, but it's really not for the personal self in a way. It's for your real awareness, and you decide how you're going to relate it to your personal self, you see? So again, it's not that the personal self is going to decide to figure this out, or you go to a psychic or something and they'll tell you this or that. But psychics only basically see into the astral worlds and what have you. They don't see into the real universes. They are not true seers, okay? They see the personal side. And also I wanted to say too, there's a misconception, and that is just because people are having experiences with the real guides and the NUUU does not make them seers. A real seer is able to see the real universes and the all is, and be able to see the reality of the experiences a person has. Otherwise, they're just having dreams and visions. This is the first step to everything. So just because you have experiences with the real guides and whatever, doesn't make you a seer. And so again, most people are still clinging to their personal lives. And I'm giving a prompt here constantly to people because you have to prepare yourself for what's coming. But if you are lodged in thinking that you know something, well, guess what? You don't. And you have to learn the three nothings. I figured these out, and I could see these things along with the influence and everything else in 2001 and on. So there are many things that an individual has to learn to see. But you're going through these experiences now because it's a new moment, it's a new now, always new, now, now, now. And so again, the old ways of doing things are constantly just kind of melting away, all right? And you have them as a reference, but they're no longer a reality, just like, old newspapers. So today is a new day. And these things do give you a hint, and it will come in many different ways. But you decide how you're going to have fun with this to figure out how to see the is, because that's everything. Everything else is just something else. So again, this becomes the most important part for your real survival. There is no survival here. Doesn't matter what you know, it all equals nothing. It can only be a reference to something else that you cannot see or consider. So this is the most important part. This is being prompt. This is why the boys are very, just how they are, etc. No nonsense. Like Paul would say, Revazar, Gopal, and all the boys, they are no nonsense, because the isness, like the sun shining, is the reality. And trying to get people up to speed to do something real and to see and be being to being. No more relationships and all this nonsense. This is all fading away, because only those that can stand in that reality, recognize that, etc., will be with the real universes and the real guides. Otherwise, everybody else will be floundering like fish out of water with their personal lives, etc. So this is the opportunity to exceed, plus what's going on in the world, what have you. I know that's a lot, but this is how it is today. So you're having these experiences, again, the interpretation is something, but it's like the package at the store. It's only the package, it's not the contents. So you got to figure that out. You got to open the box. You got to decide how you're going to prepare this for yourself and your little self. Very, very important. And this is why it is good to for people to write a book like Val has done, and some others, about how they've come into this. Also translate the books, do whatever, get involved. And just recently, Revazar told some people you need more knowledge, etc., in one of the Skype groups, and you do. If you're basing your life on your old knowledge and experiences, you're nowhere. So it's like you stepped into the new university and you're thinking that your high school diploma means something. Means nothing. It's just a reference of what you went through, and what you've learned is what not to do. So all those years that I was in the corporation with Paul, and then Darwin, and then Harry, and all the nonsense, it all added up to I needed that to see what I don't need and what isn't real. Because the sun shining and what the all is as a reference is so much better, because it becomes everything.
The first view was of me and some other people in a type of house of sorts, one that I recognized from a while ago. And there were these lower astral type creatures chasing me, and the other people kind of ran off down the stairs, and they stopped halfway and looked back at me. And then I just opened up a portal in the ground, and then those little entities kind of just dropped in and disappeared, and I closed it. And then the people who ran down the stairs kind of just faded away. They kind of fizzled out. And then after that, I remember I was having a lot of experiences regarding portals, and I never really saw how I opened them in particular, but this time it was shown to me the exact motion that it is and how I opened it. So I opened up this lavender portal and I stepped into it. And when I stepped into it, the view that I took on was, for lack of better reference or words or just whatever, it was astounding. I mean, I in my being, it was like this, I can't even say a feeling. It was just this awareness that I was looking at the entirety of creation. It was just like this big old bowl surrounded by this black fog top to bottom. And it was just like these, the representation took on almost like a fourth dimensional cube in the center that was kind of moving in and out, but it wasn't just one, it was a series of these cubes. And so my awareness swooped down into this just vastness. And then when I came up on this little tesseract type little cube thing, the center of it moved outward and became the outside, and it was like a screen. And when I looked at it, I saw the blue sky, and I saw an airplane and then a seagull, like a white bird. And then they were just frozen in the midair. And then all of a sudden from the left side came the same plane and the bird. And then when they matched up with the things with the projections of themselves that were frozen, they moved in unison. So I really recognize that's kind of like what's described as the future view. It's not necessarily a future view. It just all is, so that the cause to effects are already there. They're already sort of projected like that. So it just has to go through its time and space, point to point movement, but it's already so. So that's why, because I really wondered, I remember I wondered about the future view in the books. I was like, well, there's no future. So it's just looking at the causes and effects. And especially, it's like a hint also to it, the all is, how it just all is. So from that position with real awareness, you can see all of life more so than just maybe a position at the etheric realm via the lavender portal or whatever, and just seeing creation. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you for listening.
Oh, that was terrific, Jeremy. Yes, in the books, again, we use the words as reference for someone to relate to start off, and eventually, yes, just like your experience, you start having more so and more so this real view of things. You see it of a particular, so you describe it a certain way, but your experience and your awareness is that, and so that, you really can't share, because that is your experience and your recognition of it. And the people that you were on the real side there on the second floor with somebody, and all of a sudden they started to go downstairs, and then they look back at you. The reason being is that they wanted to see if you were coming, because they were going to go back to the first floor, the one-dimensional part. They weren't really interested, even though they were given an experience on the second floor, the real side. They didn't want to go further. They wanted to go back. That's why they faded away. You see? So again, their choice. Kind of like that old story in the Bible, Lot's wife, as she, was moving along, then looked back, and then she turned to salt. So again, the salt of the earth. So again, this is the idea. Most people will, go to their personal self, and this is probably someone, undoubtedly someone or friends or people that you've introduced this to, and they're not interested. You see it on the real side, and they want to see if you will come with them, but all of a sudden, there they are, they're gone. Their choice, yeah. That's how subtle it is. So you have to be the risk taker, and you're doing it. So you're having these experiences because you're up to it. That's so cool, and sharing this to let other people know there's many possibilities. So the portals are an interesting experience, like flying and astral projection and all these things that we have on the real side. They're an aspect of it to relate to. The real part of it is an isness. And step by step, as you go along and you decide to more so and more so recognize this, yes, it becomes more than awesome itself, to where you don't even need any images or whatever. You are with endless being to beings, the real guides, etc., and you simply recognize your position, and you know how to perceive it, see it for what it is. Yes. Thank you, Jeremy.